Hey friends, welcome to my channel. I am doing a special video on how to choose an art journal that's right for you. So there's a lot of options out there and I wanted to just kind of break them down so maybe it's a little less overwhelming if you're new and you're like, I want to try this art journaling thing, but I see so many different styles and types that I'm really not sure where to begin. So I have just completed my 4th composition notebook art journal, which I really like. But as I was thinking about what I want to do next, I was just thinking about all the different options and thought that it might be a good idea to kind of break it down and simplify it and share it with you. So first I'm going to give you kind of a broad overview and then we're going to go back and be more specific. So first I'm going to tell you how I've broken down journals into basically 4 types. So there's store-bought, altered or repurposed, handmade, or non-book journals. So we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute, but before we do that, we are just going to ask ourselves a few questions. So the first 5 questions to ask yourself are, what kind of paper or surface do you want to work with? What kind of binding do you like? How do you want it to feel? How thick or how many pages do you want in your art journal? And what size and shape do you want to work with? So let's look at each of those questions a little closer. But first, there's one more. Also, do you want to work in only one book at a time or have several journals for different purposes? First of all, let's look at paper. And the best way to actually figure out what kind of paper you like is to feel it. So, but let's just talk about like how we describe paper. And what kind of paper you work with is going to depend on what kind of medium that you're going to want to use. So if you want it to hold watercolor or a lot of mixed media, if you don't want it to pucker or buckle with paint on it, then you'll need to use something sturdier and thicker, or maybe even a cardboard or hard surface. So when we're looking at regular paper, though, some terminology to understand is GSM is grams per square meter. And in the US, we don't really use this term very much, but online, when you're talking in the global community, you hear that a lot. And it's kind of equivalent to, in the US, we say pounds of paper. So that's the weight of 500 sheets of paper or a ream in its basis size. So I think the basis size is like a lot bigger. I don't know. And the next term is tooth. That is the amount of surface texture or roughness the paper has. So you might have heard about cold press or hot press. The cold press is rougher and the hot press is smoother. Also brightness. This is the amount of blue light it reflects on a scale of 0 to 100. Also, if you're going to be primarily like sketching with pencil, you don't need as thick of a paper. So a sketchbook might be sufficient for what you need. Okay, what kind of binding do you think you'll like? So there's spiral, disc bound, ring binding, maybe like a 3-ring binder or some other type, stitch binding, and glue binding. So if you are using a pre-made book, you'll want to examine whether the binding is stitched or glued. The question that you want to ask yourself is, first of all, do you want to work in the book or do you want to be able to remove the pages to work on independently and then put them back into your journal? So with a disc-bound journal, there's it's kind of a hole punch that looks like a mushroom. And then the pages can fit back around that disc. So you can take pages in and out. You can actually you can kind of create that in a spiral bound notebook by cutting it a certain way, but there's a lot more work that is involved in that. So if you don't want to do that, then you have to ask yourself, do I mind working around the spiral? Or maybe your artwork won't even get to the edge where the spiral is. So it just things to think about. Okay, how do you want it to feel? Do you want your pages to feel clean and smooth and pretty, or do you like crunchy and texture and bumpy? Do you like elevated textures and maybe you use modeling paste, or you like the pages or the papers to be very crumbly and crunchy and So just it's a matter of your preference. Do you like soft, natural, like maybe something with using fibers or cloth? A lot of people use like little thread, and so what do you want it to feel like? Also, some people really like interactive journals where there's a lot of like pockets and fold outs and flip ups, and I don't know, a lot of them have like special terminology that I'm not entirely familiar with, but yeah, do you want it to be really interactive and have little hidden things here and there? Sometimes the people like to do that if they want to journal something that's kind of personal and they don't really want everyone to be able to read it, but they can tuck it away. In fact, I think that's what it's called, is a tuck away. Okay. How many pages do you want in your book? So that's something to think about before you choose a journal. Okay, how important is it to you to feel like you've completed a journal or project? So I started out using children's board books, which are usually, a lot of them that I used anyway, were only like 5 pages, if you even want to call them a page, because they're made of cardboard, thick cardboard. But one thing I realized is that I finished that project pretty quickly, and I was like, wow, I've completed a project. But to what degree is that important to you? So like now I do composition notebooks, which I typically have about 35 page spreads in there. And it takes me about a half a year, about 6 months usually to do those. And so, I mean, maybe you have more time and you get a lot more done. I spend hours on each page because I do a lot of detail work, but maybe you like to just kind of power through. I don't know, something to think about. So short books like children's books. Do you like the thick, bulging books? What size and shape do you want to work with? So there's all different sizes. Do you want to work in a big, giant book, or do you like little, tiny books? There's every option in between. And then there's different shapes. You can do square, you can do tall, wide. The odd shaped ones, like again, like the children's books, sometimes they have interesting edges to them. Okay, let's talk about size paper for a second. This is another thing that was kind of new to me. So we don't use these terms very much in the US, but the A sizes. So you'll hear people talk about, oh, I'm using a A5 journal or A4. So just to kind of compare, A4 is the common letter size in most countries, and that would be like just a little bit different dimensions than our standard letter size in the US, which is 8.5 by 11. And the way the A system works, it starts with A0 would be like the standard large size, which is, let's see, 1,188 by 840 millimeters. And every time you go up a number, so from A0 to A1, it's like folding it in half. And then half of A1 is A2 and half of A2 is A3. So I hope that makes sense. It was new to me. All right, varied page shapes. So do you want the edges to line up smoothly, or do you like elements hanging off the pages? Okay, do you want to work in only one book at a time or several journals for different purposes? Okay, so I guess I'm thinking of different genres of art journaling. So maybe you have an art journal that's primarily for watercolor. Their glue booking is a fun thing. That's a lot of like magazine collaging. There's a fun group on Facebook called Relax.Cut.Glue. And it's fun. It's a fun practice. And then maybe you want one for all kinds of mixed media. Maybe you want a journal for personal reflection. I personally have a journal that I just write in that has nothing to do with art journaling, but some people like to incorporate a lot of that personal reflection into their art journal. So it's up to you. Some people use it for memory keeping, more like a scrapbook, and include photos. Junk journaling is very popular, and that uses a lot of like just your day-to-day paraphernalia that you have from, eating out or the coffee shop, or your receipt from your oil change, or whatever is typically considered junk, turning that into a journal. There's grid journaling. I've seen a lot of people use like old planners or calendars and create little, either by punching out a shape and putting one in each grid, or you can actually just create pages with masking tape and do all kinds of playful mark making and lines and stamping, and it will do whatever you want in the grids. And so you might make a whole journal of just grid journaling. You might want just art experimentation where each page is just practicing and playing and not worrying about making it pretty or anything, and you're just trying to explore new techniques. Another option is a themed journal. So you might do something like a scripture journal, or here's the one that someone did of a cat journal. So if you're a cat person, song lyrics are another idea for a theme. So yeah, you might want to stick to a particular theme. Okay, do you want to work chronologically, front to back, like through the book? You turn a page and start a new one, or do you want to jump around? I have done it both ways, where I've actually prepared journals with like collage or paint before I actually go and work on the page. So each page has a little bit of something already started, and then I don't start with a blank page. And then when I've done that, I will just kind of flip it to whatever page I feel like doing. So I did not go front to back order in that one. Okay, do you want your pages to be cohesive or eclectic? So by that, I just mean, do you want to keep a similar vibe? Like I did a whole journal with all bright neon fluorescent glow colors. To keep it the same. The first one that I did, I was still so new that I wanted to try like all these different techniques. And so as you flow through, like every page had a very different technique on it. So does that matter to you? Do you want to just have no rules, or do you like having something more cohesive? Do you want to work on your journal as a whole, skipping around, or complete one page at a time? So Wendy from Willa Wonders kind of introduced me to the concept of creating a whole journal at the same time. I should probably I'll link the video if I can find it. But the idea was that she didn't necessarily complete each page. She just kind of, whenever she felt like being creative, would go in and mark on different pages whatever she felt like, and then if a page felt done, great. If not, she might add to it. So it's just interesting approach. I also want to mention that I will link all of the reference videos and pictures and things that I've used in this video down below, and so I've made sure that I've put credit on the screen as best as I could to identify the original creator. Okay, now that we've kind of talked about all the questions to think about before we choose which type of journal, so now let's talk about kind of the 4 different types of journals you can use. Okay, there's store-bought, altered or repurposed, handmade, and non-book journals. So yes, there's definitely overlap. I mean, obviously we alter our store-bought journals, and sometimes there's a kind of a overlap between handmade and altered or repurposed. I think when I say handmade, I mean like you're creating each of the individual signatures and the cover and all from scratch. Okay, so for store-bought journals, there again is spiral bound, disc bound, stitch bound. So pay attention to what kind of binding you like. There's mixed media pads and sketchbooks, so the quality of paper is going to depend on what you use it for. Here's a list of places that you can find store-bought art journals: Etsy, Blick Art Ranger, all of those that I've just listed. And just remember that sometimes the journals look really pretty, but the paper quality might be like really thin and not what you're looking for, so just pay attention to that. Okay, altered or repurposed. These are essentially things that exist in book form already, but we are just going to convert them into an art journal. So I love using composition notebooks. It's one of my favorite discoveries, but the paper, again, is just really cheap paper, so you got to be comfortable working with that, like just notebook paper. Old books are another option, like an old novel. Sometimes you can find these at thrift stores really cheap, I mean under $1, and then you just rip out pages and restitch things and just rework it so that it works for you. Okay, children's books. This can be the toddler board books, or these can be just normal children's books because you get them in a variety of sizes. They're usually not super thick, but a lot of them are stitch bound and have pretty solid pages. So with a little gesso over the illustrations, or you can incorporate the illustrations into your art book. Yeah, I think there's a lot of options with children's books. And if you get them at like the Goodwill bins where they're doomed for destruction anyway, then, don't worry about it. Okay, I haven't tried this one yet, but I think it would be really cool to use an old atlas to make an art journal because you've got maps to build on, which I don't know. I think that's kind of fun. So that's an idea. I said old planner, but you could use a current planner and actually just art journal in and around maybe some handwritten journaling in a planner or a calendar. I think that'd be cool. Or you can just repurpose an old one. Okay, also photo albums with sleeves to make pockets. So you could make maybe smaller little art cards that slip into the pockets, or yeah, that's an idea. I've seen people actually create a book out of magazines. So either by cutting it down to a certain size or like tearing out pages and re-gluing them. It's just amazing what you can turn into an art journal. An old passport. Okay, my kids' passports have expired and I totally want to turn them into art journals. So, okay, the third category is handmade. And by this, I mean like you make your own cover, you make your own signatures, and a signature are the pages or the groups of pages that you stitch in or glue in or however you adhere into the book. And I'll say here that a lot of people just love the process of creating the books themselves, the book binding. Like in this particular one is just a string bound, so you don't need to punch any holes. So she's kind of showing how it lines up. But yeah, there's a lot of ways to do it. And so sometimes that can be half the fun is just making the book. And you don't necessarily have to use all like solid paper. You can use junk papers like junk mail. You can use scrapbook paper, graph paper, envelopes. I mean, you can really mix it up a lot, like vellum, any kind of thing. So that's kind of more like the junk journaling style. And then there's zines or zines. I don't know how I've heard it pronounced both ways, but that's basically taking a large paper and folding it in a way that it will open up kind of like a book. And so those can be kind of fun. There's also other types of folding techniques that create little books. So I would consider that all handmade. You can make a journal out of brown paper lunch bags or grocery bags. There's so many cool techniques. Check this one out. This blog shows how to make a journal from envelopes, so that's kind of cool. Okay, so let's talk about non-book journals, and I'm categorizing anything that is like tags, trading cards, playing cards, index cards, Rolodex cards, lots of different cards, some mixed media, maybe on more of an object like blocks or so anything that is just kind of in that mixed media journaling genre. And really, I don't think it matters where we define the lines between junk journaling and art journaling and visual journaling. Who cares what we call it? Just have fun and make art. And that brings us back to our original question. How do you find the right one for you? You just have to try them. And you don't have to try them all, and you can't try them all at once. So start with something that you see that makes you go, ooh, that looks like fun, and try it. And if you love it, keep doing it again and again and again until you don't feel like doing it again and you feel like trying something different, and then try that. So the important thing is you're just making art and having fun and enjoying the process. If you are new here, I typically do process videos of my art journal pages. So if you want to go check those out and come back and hang out with me again, I would love it. So until then, go make some art, have a great day, and God bless you.